I'm Joanna. I am the founder of MAPP, which is a nonprofit we started about a couple years ago, really more as grassroots. It was providing screenings across the country for A Fine Line. For those of you who don't know A Fine Line is a documentary that premiered last spring on PBS. And it's all about exploring why less than 7% of head chefs and restaurant owners are women, and really digging deep into what these challenges are and what we can do to prevent this crazy statistic from still going on. So we realized, because we were part of such critical conversations, that we needed to do something about it. And we needed to, number one, provide more recognition and press to the women who are doing amazing things in this field. And then, of course, trying to tackle what is needed here. So that's how we created MAPP. And MAPP, what we are focused on is mentorship, advocacy, the power of women, bringing these amazing women together in a sisterhood to talk about all the issues that people are going through, and what we can do to support each other and empower each other to stay in the game, as we say, and let alone to keep advancing and getting into leadership and management and ownership. So that's what MAPP is all about. Please visit us at www.mappimpact.org. That's MAPP impact.org. You can become a free member. It's absolutely free. And then you stay up to date on these amazing resources and tools that we provide, like today with the post-COVID restaurant survival toolkit. So please join us, become a free member. And we're especially excited for some upcoming programming this year, like our first inaugural conference. It's going to be really fun and very inspirational, and definitely something that we hope you'll all use throughout your career. So we're going to keep you posted on details for that as we develop the itinerary and final location, which will be somewhere really warm to get everyone to come and get some time to relax and learn at the same time. And please also follow us at A Fine Line Movie and MAPP Impact on social media. And again, we do a lot of fun things on there, including some giveaways in which we will be providing the winner of this last giveaway with Meister. We worked together for this session with Tanya Holland, which we're so excited about. So we're going to provide, we're going to let you know who the winner is for an awesome chef's knife at the end of today's session. So as I see people are joining us, I'm going to jump right into the session, because we're really excited to have Tanya today. She's been a friend and just someone I admire so much for all she's done throughout her career, but especially really making her mark in the culinary and overall hospitality industry. And one thing I also want to do is recognize some incredible people who have been with us from the very beginning. And one of them is, Distinguished Vineyards Wine Partners, but in particular, their new wine, which is called Doe, which is an awesome wine. I had the privilege of tasting recently. This is their beautiful bottle. And what I love about Doe is that they're all about purpose. It's all about giving back in the industry and supporting industry-wide change when it comes to building equity and inclusion. So we're really proud to have Doe as a partner. Doe gives back not only now working with us with MAPP, but to the James Beard Foundation. So it's really great to have companies that believe in equity and are doing something about it. So cheers to you, Doe, and thank you for providing a bottle to our awesome guests as well. So Tanya, we hope you enjoy your bottle as well. Keep in mind, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat box or question box. We're going to get to them at the end of our conversation. So we'll reserve time at the end to answer all your questions. So let's see, where are we? Okay, I think I'm going to get started by providing a brief introduction on Tanya Holland. Tanya is the executive chef and owner of Brown Sugar Kitchen restaurant, which is located in Oakland, California. Brown sugar is really lauded for Chef Tanya's inventive take on modern soul food, as well as comfort classics, and all she's done to innovate the menu. She is the author of the Brown Sugar Kitchen Cookbook and New Soul Cooking, and Tanya competed on the 15th season of Top Chef on Bravo, and she has also appeared on, well, she's currently appearing on the new HBO Max show, Selena and Chef, featuring Selena Gomez. Tanya is the host of OWN's, that's Oprah Winfrey Network's Tanya's Kitchen Table, which is amazing. And in 2020, Tanya launched Tanya's Table podcast, which we're going to be talking about today, of course. And the podcast is in association with MuddHouse Media. She's on the Board of Trustees for the James Beard Foundation. Additionally, she has teamed up with the Oakland Museum of California to create a new cafe concept for the museum called Town Fair by Tanya Holland, and that's in 2021. It's set to open this year. She's an in-demand public speaker and lecturer, and someone who really speaks authentically towards inclusion and equity in the hospitality industry. So we're just super honored and thrilled to have Tanya on board for today. And thank you, Tanya, for being so generous with your time and offering your great insight to our audience. Nice to have you.
Nice to be here. Thank you for asking me to here. And I'm hoping everybody can hear me clearly. I am at my restaurant. We are open for lunch. We just opened, and there might be some noise in the background. I just hesitate to turn the music off as it, changes the experience for the customer. So let me know if there's any issue. I will turn it off.
No, we love that we're right in your element there and get the real deal here.
My contractor, he needs my attention. Yeah. See you later. Anyways, yeah, it's great to be here. You know, you mentioned I was on the Board of Trustees of James Beard Foundation. I'm also the chair of the awards. So I think it's at least a 3-year term, maybe 2 3-year terms. So just started that, and we're making some really big changes there. So it's really exciting.
That's great. That's great to hear that they've really committed to doing this and making these changes. And it's really good to hear that you're a part of it. So that's really important.
Yeah.
How are you doing? Because we know, number one, over the past year, Brown Sugar Kitchen has been open dealing with the pandemic and going through everything, but you've also really been so integral in your Oakland community there. You've been feeding so many people. You've really been just a vital part to the community. So how's business going now, and how are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well, considering it all. It's definitely a very surreal experience, as everybody experienced COVID, to be here, but also to be part of an industry that's so social, so dependent on the interaction of people, whether it's through the people that work for me, vendors, customers, the whole team. And so, in the beginning, we just pivoted by doing takeout and having pickup service, something we hadn't done in ever, and at least not in this location. And then we were fortunate enough to have an investor come in and sponsor us to cook for families in need. So that kept us afloat. And then we were also able to give back and cook for these families. And then the movement happened. And once that happened, the support of Black businesses was highlighted, and we were getting a lot of support. My personal brand and platform elevated, and I was invited to, be on the Selena cooking show, to create the cooking show with at OWN. And then I had already began plans to record my podcast, and that time period gave me extra access to people that may have been a little bit harder to access. So, it's been a pretty interesting year. It's definitely one of growth and one of reflection, and just prioritizing what's important in business and in life.
Right. And I think that's what you touched on that I got too, is that what I'm seeing, we're developing a new series, and the more chefs and restaurateurs and people in the industry we're speaking with, we're seeing how they're really embracing new roles of activism, of community involvement on a much deeper level, which, I feel like restaurateurs in general, if you're tuned into the community, you have a really good community standing.
Yeah.
But now we see it's like more chefs are even embracing new causes or issues that really matter to them. And so I think, and it probably opens up other doors, like maybe what happened with you, like you mentioned, with shows and podcasts and what have you.
Yeah. And I mean, I've always, been part of this community, giving back and all that. So, it's just not new for me. It's not new for me to have challenges and to have to pivot. So, I think those of us who have had those challenges, we just took on COVID. Excuse me 1 second. Sarah. Excuse me. Sorry.
So you're all getting, see, the restaurateur just doesn't take a break, even for a live webinar. I love it. No, listen, I know this. This is what my mom, being raised in the industry, she never got a break. So thank you for being here again.
Oh, yeah. It's all good.
So let me ask you, because I think that's a big part to how we even created this Survival Toolkit series. Really, we were hearing from a lot of chefs in the industry, restaurateurs, of course, too, how to diversify, how to increase revenue streams, how to sort of branch out and create new opportunities for themselves rather than just sticking to the daily grind. Tanya, are you still with us? Oh,
sorry.
Okay, no, we lost you for a second. Got it. So, how would you recommend, well, maybe one question first is, how do you do it? Because I know you are such a hands-on chef. You literally have been working the line over the past year, and you always have been. But yet you're like, we said in your bio, you have your couple television shows, cookbooks. You're now opening another concept with the museum. How are you, and let alone Tanya's Table, the podcast. So how are you doing all this? What is your secret sauce? How do you keep everything afloat? How do you do it?
Well, I mean, it takes a team and it takes a village. And then I've always been good at multitasking and compartmentalizing. And, a lot of these projects are also, they're just projects that are limited, right? So, the Selena show was just a one-day recording. The Tanyas Kitchen Table show was a week of recording, so it's intense for a week. I made sure I had coverage here at the restaurant. The podcasts I recorded on Mondays, which was the day we were closed. And so I just did, anywhere from 2 to 4 shows on a Monday for, 5 or 6 weeks and knock those out. And, I've been planting seeds all along my whole career, and you just never know when they're going to flourish. So just, I didn't know that I was going to make this podcast happen so quickly. I actually had that on the back burner. And then my friend of mine was working with MuddHouse and said they were looking for new talent. So they were interested in talking to me. And so that happened pretty fast. And again, the opportunity with OWN, I wasn't currently pursuing it, but they reached out to me because they decided to do some cooking show programming. So that, you just never know. But it's important to build relationships and continue to plant seeds and, always build the team, because you can't do everything. And, when I'm cooking on the line, it's just, it comes second nature to me. So it's, it's kind of easy, but it's exhausting, as you know, from your mother. And I always am striving towards creating work and life balance, but it's, it's hard.
Yeah, and that's another thing we especially heard over this past year, because as much as business may have, dropped significantly for a lot of people, they were working harder than ever because you had to do so much more and you had limited help. And so this issue of burnout that we're hearing so much more is really significant, let alone for women, let alone of women of color. So are you dealing with that any better than you would normally in the past? Are you embracing sort of trying to take on some more rest when you can get it? I don't know. Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, trying to rest and, take care of my health, self-care, whenever I can squeeze it in. I'm pretty decent at it, considering how busy I am. But the biggest piece of care that I've done is really been really careful about who I bring into my team and who I surround myself with. And so, COVID gave me an opportunity to do some house cleaning, including a business partnership that was quite toxic, and people that they brought on who weren't supporting me, that had implicit biases that, you know, were just not aligned with me and vilified me. And, I'm just like not tolerating that anymore. I worked too hard to have to deal with that on top of my hard work. So that's the biggest piece of self-care that I've given myself this year. And it's the more I do that, the more I flourish, and the more like the supportive people show up.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and that's not easy to do. I mean, I went through something similar in a sense too when I was first getting going, and I think it takes a lot of courage to know, to number one, admit your own self-worth, know what it is, know when someone else is not, holding up their part of the deal, and then to hold them, hold these people accountable so that you can then flourish, like you said. So good for you that you're not backing down and that you're only growing. And obviously you're doing well because look at all these new things that are happening for you.
yeah, no, it feels like a really good positive time. Yeah.
So let's jump right into the podcast. Um, as Tanya's going through something there, if for anyone who hasn't tuned into Tanya's table yet, it really is amazing. I was telling Tanya before we started, I had been listening to it, especially over the last couple of weeks. I'd been doing a lot of road trips for some reason, and I was catching up on season 2. And what I really love about it, Tanya, which I again, expressed, is the array of guests you feature. You have these amazing chefs and restaurateurs. Karen Economix and Eduardo Jordan. But then I heard the episode with American jazz and gospel singer Liz Wright, with the Black Panther leader Erica Huggins. I mean, it was just, I think you have Phil. Do you have Phil Rosenthal on there? Did I see that?
Yeah.
I mean, the creator of
Everybody Loves Raymond.
Everybody Loves Raymond. Yeah. So I want to tune into that one.
Yeah.
But what is your thought process behind the lineup? Because I think it's just so, it almost gave me like this aha moment in the sense of people who are all about true hospitality and can make you feel comfortable, but also really feed you, and they love your food, are willing to open up, right? And feel like much more in your presence and want to share their experiences with you. And I saw that with my mom. She could sit with like a guest every hour at the restaurant, but of course she has work to do. So does that transition sort of naturally for you going into this podcast now and interviewing and talking to people? It just seems like you just are talking to so many awesome people.
Yeah, I mean, it does come naturally to me. It's just the way I've been all my life and how I was raised to interact with all kinds of people. My parents were quite social. They expected me to be that way. They put me in a lot of different situations. We've traveled extensively throughout the States. I've traveled across the country. I've studied other cultures. And I do truly like hospitality. I mean, that's what I'm most passionate about, more so than cooking, is making people feel comfortable in the space and creating the entire ambiance and experience, from food to drink to service. And I equate the guest list to like the old school restaurants where people had their famous, clientele on the walls. Like this is sort of my wall, and a lot of them have been guests. A lot of them I've met at events, and some are like one degree of separation and people that I just really want to speak to. And I have such diverse interests because I've worked in other, industries in the past, and a lot of my friends work in different industries. I'm just a very curious person naturally. So and I love, love, love finding the common denominator. And it often starts with food, what we all have in common. I mean, we all eat, we all, kind of experience other cultures through food. And, I just wanted to, have that opportunity to show, and especially in this time of so much division in our country and in our world, to just show how connected we all are. You know, if we just take a moment to have a conversation.
Right, right. And I think it is key, seeing that it's restaurateurs or people in food who are bringing these conversations. You know, I think, like you said, it's interesting the role you play in particular. So it gets people's guard down, you know, and willing to just sort of open up about issues.
Yeah.
All right. So when you knew you wanted to start this podcast, you had the idea for content. What was your next step? Because a lot of people have been writing us saying that they have these great ideas creatively when it comes to the content, but they're sort of hesitant about some of the other elements of creating a podcast. What would you say is the first steps in doing this, and how does it help with your existing career or business strategy?
Yeah, I think just, making an outline, deciding what is your distinctive voice. I always knew I just wanted to bring people to the table and have a conversation with me. I mean, preferably it would have been over food, but because of COVID, we were all isolated, which again proved to my advantage because there were people stuck at home. A lot of, celebrities. I talked to notable people and I was able to access them. But I really did, make an outline of what the show would be. I did, for me, I used that Proustian questionnaire that's in the back of Vanity Fair as a guide, sort of what would be your last meal on earth? If you could do anything else, what would you do? And then you start expanding upon those questions. And then you sort of have a repertoire of questions, but leave room for conversations to be organic and for some improvisation, which I really like to do. But, and also keep in mind that person's profession and personality that you may know about them, and things you want to delve into in that way. But you do have to have a true north, a point of view that is unique, so that you can differentiate yourself from others in the market, because, a lot of people started podcasts last year.
Right.
I think that what set me apart is the guest list that I had. And, again, being a Black woman chef perspective, restaurateur, perspective. Obviously, we talked a lot about what we were experiencing during COVID, but we talked a lot about other things too.
And what about some of the technical elements, right? In terms of maybe the editing or promoting, because, I'm sure, well, I don't know, does it help, of course, that you're working on this with MuddHouse? But for some maybe chefs who are just starting out, who might not have that, partnership lined up.
Yeah.
Any pointers for them?
Yeah, I mean, they helped me because they sent me the recording equipment, but you can probably go into most of, the stores that sell that kind of stuff, whether it's like a Best Buy or B&H, and order it. And then, I'm lucky that I'm in a room that has been acoustically engineered. So I have a special sound system with acoustics. So we had, nice and quiet. You want to have a quiet space. And I had an engineer who just did sort of the transferring of the files, because there's a lot, I was doing a lot. So we just hired somebody hourly to help me with that and make sure we were connected. But, I definitely got feedback from some other people, and they're saying that, maybe instead of having people call in with their phone, you should do it over Zoom, even though it's not video, but they felt the sound quality might be better. So I'm going to try that for next season. Should we do a third season? But, it was definitely a steep learning curve for me. I was learning as I was going along.
And what about promoting your podcast?
Yeah.
Is that something you do a lot through your actual restaurant as well, or?
Yeah, we mostly did, social media, and then we hired a publicist. MuddHouse hired a publicist to get me printed, or on some online articles, and that definitely helps. We started social media channels for Tanya's Table podcast, so we started an Instagram page, and then cross pollinate it with my Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and the restaurants. And so I'm lucky again to have started with a decent platform, but I think because of the roster of guests, my platform really increased. because it all aggregates. So for instance, Lars Ulrich, I think, of Metallica, the drummer, had the most followers, and people who listen to our conversation start following me, and that was all very helpful. And then that helps, with the next ones and the next ones. It's great.
Yeah. So, are there any pitfalls that you would advise, other people from not doing because you learned along the way? Any tips in terms of like, oh God, I went through this. Definitely don't do this type of thing, or.
No, I think, my philosophy is just give it a try. I mean, you don't really have anything to lose, give it a try. I know some people who have recorded and gotten a bunch in the can before they went to, they went out there and start airing them. And so you can do that too. Just practice, obviously. I mean, maybe practice, I would say. I didn't really practice. I didn't have time. It kind of all happened very quickly. And, I would like to have, as I suggested, a little bit more time. It's just time to write out the questions, to really have your formula, put together. Again, you might stray from it, but just, have something lined up so there's no, silent moments.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think so. We get to some of these questions because we got a lot of questions that came in.
Okay, great.
So one question here I see is oh, well, here's one. I just made it on a cooking show. This is from Janelle Summers. Any advice for a Black female chef coming on to a cooking show?
Oh, that's great. No, I mean, just be your authentic self, I would say, and, if you experience any biases at this day and age, I say call them out, just be really clear and transparent about, who you are and knowing how people perceive you in this world. And, I did that on Top Chef. They weren't ready for it. It was before the movement really escalated. But I think I know now, some of them are seeing, and definitely the viewers see that, there were biases there. And so this season is all about diversity and inclusion. It didn't come out of nowhere. It's not just, driven by the movement. It came out of, me being outspoken. So, don't hesitate to stand up for yourself.
What about, is there a group of either like a resource, a network, a group where some newcomers in the industry, like television industry, are getting their own shows, may be able to ask questions? Because I know, like you and I were talking about deals, right? I mean, that can make or break someone's future. So talking about contracts and agreements and not being taken advantage of. If someone doesn't have a manager, or someone, is just starting out, what do you recommend for them?
Right. Yeah. It's really, it's tough. I mean, I went through it, it's hard to find counsel. It's very expensive. A lot of these contracts, the production companies, they can afford the really expensive legal advice. So they're really tight, but, I know there's some online legal advisors. I would say, try to find anyone. Sometimes law firms work pro bono. Have somebody review your contract if you possibly can, to make sure you're not, giving up anything that you don't need to. But most of them, they're not like, they're not contracts forever. So there's usually some kind of exit clause or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's really, it's challenging in the beginning, I will say.
What about, because you've been in the kitchen too, and you've been outspoken in that regard in terms of toxic crews that you've worked with before, or challenges that you face as a Black woman, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with a toxic kitchen culture?
Yeah, that's the hardest. That's so hard because, when I was younger and working in those environments, I didn't have the tools. The conversations definitely weren't as open as they are now. And, I just kept looking for allies. So, there's got to be at least one ally who's in that, that space, or you go to another space and you just try to find the space where you get the most support. Some people are not going to change. unfortunately, but don't take it personally. It's about them. It's not about you.
Yeah, and especially today, right? I mean, so many people are looking for help and labor, so
Exactly.
don't stick
Exactly.
around somewhere you don't feel respected and valued.
Exactly.
Okay. Oh, this is interesting. What's the next goal that you plan on crossing off your list?
Ooh, so many goals. I've been wanting to open up, to have a place in wine country for a long time because there's not representation of any African American hospitality businesses. I mean, there's wine businesses, but very few that are open to the public and that have, some kind of notoriety. So that's on my list. I'm finishing up my third cookbook. I would like to write a memoir at some point. That's on my list. And I really would like to start like an organization that is potentially a foundation to be a resource for, in particular, young women of color, or women of, women in this industry, women in general, young people of color, to guide them and to provide these answers to all these questions, to provide the information that has been withheld for decades and centuries so that we can, all have the access to the opportunities that we seek. We just want access to the opportunities. It doesn't mean everyone is going to become a celebrity chef or have their own show, but, at least want to be able to try and have the information so you can make, educated decisions.
Absolutely.
So
That's what it's all about.
that's a goal. Yep.
Well, let's see here. This is a fun question too. What inspires or sparks your creativity as a chef?
Like I said, I'm really, more passionate about being an entrepreneur and a restaurateur and creating hospitality. For food, because I live in California, I'm very much inspired by the seasons and what's available seasonally. And, seeing what my colleagues are doing with that food, what I can do to just honor that ingredient without, masking it or manipulating it too much is really what I enjoy the most.
What about, here's a podcast question. How do you get your podcast on a platform?
I mean, it's a mystery to me, honestly. That's why I'm working with MuddHouse, and they have helped me get the podcast onto platforms and through relationships they have. But I think it's relatively simple. But that's something I need to, I want to be able to answer those questions for you all. So I'll find out and circle back with Joanna, and we'll get that out there on your platform so people know.
We'll definitely put a link to all these answers. So for sure, we will do that. And maybe another one you can check out too. This is about more how you define success for your podcast. So if there's any metrics or numbers you keep an eye on to know that you're doing well, do you have any of those that you watch for?
We definitely have metrics of, listeners, and we're doing okay. I think, the publicity definitely helps. When there, there's a lot of people that have podcasts that are doing so much, more listenership than me, but their platforms are bigger. And they have sponsorship, so that helps as well. So yeah, it's hard to say. For me, I was fortunate enough to have this opportunity to kind of experiment and see if it was something I enjoy doing and something that could work. And we're still looking for a sponsorship. So if I do a third season, again, just taking it one day at a time to see, if we can grow it into something. But I think also with things opening back up, people might be getting back to more visual experiences. And, there are some people who have videotaped their podcasts, and I might like to do that in the future.
Mm-hmm. What about someone here saying, I'm young and I don't really know how to grow because I can't spend too much money. Do you have any advice for me? Instead of financial burdens, what other ways, creative ways are there to grow in your career?
I did not have much money for much of my career. It's still all very relative, but I always, I always had a second job. I always would take time to interview someone who was in a position or a place in their career where I wanted to be and talk to them about their journey and know that everybody's journey is different, but you can learn something from everyone and read as much as you can, listen to what you can. There's so many more resources now that are free with internet. There's books online. So I just think, just continually be a student, of your work.
And I think one of the last questions we'll get to here is in terms of what advice would you give to a young mother who's trying to get into the culinary world? Is there a certain way you think they should go about starting out, or just trying to really stick to something they're passionate about?
Yeah, I mean, my best advice for anyone is try it before you spend money on a culinary program. So just, we have what we call stages, is where you work for free. Sometimes it's in exchange for a meal. And I know it's hard to, work for free, but it's just a shift. Could be a half shift, like 4 hours, to get to know what the company culture is like in the place that you're considering, and what the job description, the tasks are like. So I really advise, doing that, tipping your toe in the water to see if it feels good, and or working a part-time job in any of those places that seem of interest to you.
I'll just wrap this up, Tanya, with because you mentioned stage, and for us, mentorship is so important. So what we'll do a lot of time is pair up either mentees, like young people who are looking to get into the industry or further their career, or like this woman who's talking about maybe she's in it, but she's trying to advance. So we do a lot of that. Do you, and this is a question someone has, so please reach out to us is one answer, because at MAPP, that's something that we work a lot about doing. But another question here connected to that is, do you find time with everything you're doing to still be able to mentor people? Do you, is that something that you incorporate in what you're doing?
Yeah, I do continuously. I mean, I do for the people who work for me, constantly. I tell them that there's always an opportunity to learn. This is a learning environment. You're here to learn and grow. I mean, that's what matters. And I really want them to be sponges, and I share everything that's in my head, because I didn't always have, that opportunity given to me. And then I have a couple mentees, like, this week is my cookbook photo shoot. I'm bringing along a young woman who's interested in food styling and the cookbook process. And I have a couple at a distance, and, I'm always available. I want to make myself available, but I want mentees to be clear that it's a two-way street. So you also have to understand that your mentor is busy, and it's not a hand-holding, it's not a babysitting. It is, it's a privilege to have a mentor share their information and their time. But I also am very inspired to do that, and, just love to see people grow and develop. But I just think, some mentees might not have clear expectations around the relationship, that it doesn't mean it's like this one-on-one tutor.
Right.
And, you're going to get different things from different mentors. I got it. Let me check. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Tanya, we're so grateful you came on. Thank you so much for being with us. We know how busy you are. We can see the hustle and bustle behind you. Yeah. So thank you again. And in parting, is there anything else you want to say? Or you've been awesome. I'm sure everyone's so inspired by all you're doing. So thank you.
Well, I hope so. And, I see a question about somebody asking who inspires me, what women in food. I mean, I'm inspired by so many of my colleagues who I see us all working so hard. I'm inspired by Joanna's mom, Val. I mean, what she's created. I love the movie. I love, the story. And, I have colleagues who are mothers, colleagues who have battled cancer, who have, partners, busy lives. And yeah, I get my inspiration from all over. And, restaurateurs who have accomplished a lot, who have multiple units, who have, shows and brands like Ina Garden and, yeah, and I take my inspiration from people in other industries. Oprah, of course, and who Joanna knows I recently spoke to, which was really exciting. And business neighbors I have that are also entrepreneurs in different industries. So really, lots of people.
Yeah, and I think you're a good teacher for all of us to keep our head up too, and not just be so focused on one thing, because like you said, you make room to grow by also talking to a lot of different people and being involved in a lot of different areas in your life,
Yeah.
not just, one lane. So, well,
Exactly.
good for you, Tanya. We're so happy for all your success and all you're doing. Please, everyone, tune in, subscribe to Tanya's Table podcast. It's really amazing, and we will talk to you again. And
That's
everyone, oh, and I just want to announce the Meister knife giveaway winner is Joy Tyra. She's based out of Hawaii, so thank you, Joy. And don't forget to RSVP for our next session, which is coming up in mid-June. I don't have the date in front of me right now, although I should, but Nora may have put the link in the chat that you can RSVP, and you can also, of course, go to mappimpact.org to do it there. So,
and Nora's telling everybody I'm on TV tonight as a judge on MasterChef. Legend.
Yes.
So,
awesome.
Please tune in.
We will tune in. All right. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.